Tony Blazier for the Motocross Vault presented by Blinzall. If you're in the market for some high quality racing oil for your 2-stroke or 4, make sure you go to blinzall.com and use our discount code VAULT20 to save 20% at checkout. Thank you for all the support.
This is Hannah.
This is Bailey.
This is Butter.
Welcome to the Motocross Vault. I don't care, I like that one.
Hello and welcome back to the Motocross Vault. My name is Tony Blazier, and what this video is going to cover is a look back at Honda's 1973 XR75. Now, at the time when Honda came out with the XR75, they were already one of the most popular motorcycle manufacturers in the world. They sold just hundreds and hundreds of thousands of little motorcycles, 50s and what have you. The little Cubs and what have you were really, really popular all over the world, but they weren't really known as an off-road manufacturer. They were more doing like on-off-road style, what they called enduros at the time. You have machines you could do a little light off-roading if you want, whether it's a scrambler or whatever you wanted to call it. They weren't really serious, certainly about motocross and off-road racing in general. But in 1973, they came out with a couple of really groundbreaking machines. The first one to hit market here was the 1973 XR75, a machine that was designed for off-road racing. There's no headlights on the bike. It's not designed to go on the street. It was a serious off-road racer, which seems maybe kind of funny to think of now. When you think of an XR, you think of more of like a slow kind of a play bike, but in 73, when this bike came out, it was a legitimate race bike for the mini class. It was actually faster than the new YZ80 at the time, which is kind of hard to believe. I've never ridden one of those first YZs. They must have been a very mild state of tune to have the XR outpower it. But looking at the old tests here from the time, the XR was actually faster. Now, these bikes could become pretty potent machines. Jeff Ward actually started his career racing these XRs, and I think if you breathed on them a little bit, there was a lot of potential in the motor, but stock, it's pretty mild. But early on, this bike was actually very competitive. Now, quickly, the two-strokes would get much faster. By the mid-70s, the YZ80s were much faster. The RM came out, then eventually you get the KX and CR, and they far eclipsed the performance of this XR. But the XR would stay in Honda's lineup for like 4 decades. It would become a little bit larger. They upped it to like an 80cc XR80. And by the time I got into riding in the 80s, the XR was like the dream bike of a little kid to have a, play bike for the backyard. I don't think anybody was thinking of motocrossing an XR75 or an XR80 at that time, but they went on as a great, great play bike for many years. And it was really an important machine for Honda because, again, this kind of paved the way there. The CR Elsinore came out right after this and really got Honda on the map and helped kick off that Japanese revolution here in the 70s where motorcycling just exploded in popularity and you had a lot of inexpensive, reliable, well-built machines that really got Americans addicted on the off-road revolution. If you like this sort of thing, I have other videos on the channel covering the XRs. I'm a big off-road fan. In general, love riding off-road. And I've had XRs myself. My best bud, Jamie, just bought a 87 XR75. You can find a little video on our channel of that. And I have reviews that cover the history of several XR models, including the XR250 and 500, 600, and all those. You can find all those here on my channel as well. If you'd like to support what I do, I have XR merch available on my Teespring store. I've done several different XR-focused designs, mainly in the 80s and early 90s, kind of my favorite year for the Honda XRs. But if you like some kind of merch that would have a little bit of XR in your life, you can find that on my Teespring store. And I'll put a link here in the description and also a card here in the video. So here, without further ado, is a look back at Honda's all-new 1973 XR75. In the 1960s, Honda was one of the most popular motorcycle brands in the world. They had made their name producing inexpensive and reliable commuter machines with names like Cub, Dream, and Hawk. Unlike most brands of the time, Hondas didn't leak, belch smoke, or refused to start at regular intervals. They generally went about their business in an unassuming manner and won over thousands of buyers not normally attracted to the rebellious and rambunctious lifestyle of 60s motorcycling. With bright, clean, and well-lit showrooms, reasonable prices, and taglines like "You always meet the nicest people on a Honda," they were the motorcycle for the common man. While immensely popular in the street arena, Honda in the 60s had very little presence in the off-road market. In fact, it was not until 1968 that they finally introduced a machine for the off-road market, the Z50A Mini Trail. The Z50 was no race bike, but rather a simple and easy-to-manage trail machine with a 3-speed auto-clutch transmission and a set of odd folding handlebars designed to make it easy to carry the motorcycle in the trunk of your car. The new Mini Trail proved to be a massive hit, and soon they were seen all over the country ripping around campsites and backyards. After the success of the Z50, Honda added a new 72cc version in 1969 they dubbed the CT70 or Trail 70. Like the Z50, the new Trail 70 was a small and easy to handle off-road machine with a mellow overhead valve 4-stroke motor and automatic clutch. Also like the Mini Trail, the 70 featured a unique folding bar setup and compact dimensions that made it an ideal machine to cram in the back of your station wagon or hang off the back bumper of your Chevrolet Impala. With the introduction of the Trail 70, Honda had another massive hit on their hands, and buyers snapped them up in droves. In 1970, the SL70 Motorsport joined the lineup and added the joys of a manual clutch to the off-road mix. The SL featured a more conventional frame than the Z50 and CT70 and offered a better platform for off-road fun. The motor remained a very mildly tuned 4-stroke and offered a meager 6.5 horsepower to pull around its 153 pounds of bulk. It was heavier and less powerful than most of its 2-stroke competition, but it did offer excellent suspension for the time and a very reliable and trouble-free ownership experience. While the Z50, CT70, and SL70 were all immensely popular and fun, none of them were particularly high-performance off-road machines. They were easy to handle, reliable and fun, but less than appealing for the go-fast set. Some people tried to turn their SL70s into race bikes, with power-up kits and big bore packages available from companies like Webco and Powerroll, but these modifications sacrificed the bike's anvil-like reliability for a few additional horsepower. For those waiting for a serious off-road machine from Honda, the wait was finally over in 1972, when Honda announced not one but two all-new off-road racers. The first was to be a full-on race bike with a sturdy steel frame, full knobby tires, heavy-duty suspension, and not a turn signal in sight. This bike would come race-ready with competition number plates, serrated steel pegs, plastic unbreakable fenders, and a high-performance motor. The machine would signal an all-new direction for Honda's off-road program and fittingly wear an all-new designation, XR. The all-new XR75 would make its debut in the fall of 1972, a full month before its scene-stealing brother, the Elsinore, would make it to these shores. The XR was small, but incredibly trick for its time, with beautiful fit and finish and a purposeful look. Gone was the moped-style laid-down motor of the CT and SL. In its place was an all-new mill that screamed performance. Tight, compact, and no-nonsense, the 72cc engine in the XR shared its displacement with the SL motor, but very little else. Sporting a 47 by 41.4mm bore and stroke and an 8.8:1 compression ratio, the new mill featured larger valves, a higher rev ceiling, and a bigger carb than the SL. Complementing the new top end was a high-flow exhaust, less restrictive airbox, and lightweight magneto ignition. Putting the power to the ground was a rugged manual clutch and a close-ratio 4-speed transmission with straight-cut gears for durability. While the new motor was certainly no rocket, it was more than up to the challenge of keeping up with its rivals at the time. It was far more powerful than the old SL mill and easily capable of toting a full-size adult around the track or trail. It was smooth, torquey, and actually faster than most of its mini-class rivals at the time. Yamaha's all-new YZ80 held a slight advantage out of the hole, but the superior top-end power of the XR75 pulled it ahead every time. The smooth shifting 4-speed transmission and excellent clutch also helped keep the little 4-banger in the meat of its power and made the best use of its broad power band. Aiding the XR's race readiness was an all-new frame and rugged off-road ready suspension. The new frame was stronger and lighter than the old SL unit and featured a single, large down tube and beefy stamped steel backbone. The design used the engine as a stressed member and tied the front and rear sections together with a monocoque-style center section. Under the motor was a full skid plate and a rather odd set of foot peg mounts that placed one peg farther forward than the other for some inscrutable reason. The handling on the XR was considered excellent for its time, with good turning and decent stability for a bike with such a short wheelbase. The little Honda was easy to wheelie over obstacles with the proper amount of body English and slid well under power. Even with a full-size adult on board, the bike felt solid and did not do anything weird or spooky. The only real weak point on the chassis turned out to be those rather curious pegs, which were mounted directly to the bottom of the engine cases. If ridden hard and not watched constantly, the mounts could become stripped out and fail. Other than that, Honda's little Mini was absolutely bulletproof. In the suspension department, the XR used a set of non-adjustable telescopic forks and dual rear shocks. The units were similar to the components found in the SL70, but both ends offered slightly longer travel and more aggressive damping. Performance was considered excellent for the time, with Popular Cycling raving that they were the best forks available on any machine in 1973. While both ends were slightly stiff for light trail riding, they proved excellent on the track and were capable of handling the punishment delivered by fast juniors or even an occasional adult. In 1972, Honda fired two groundbreaking salvos across the bow of the off-road industry. The first shot was the Honda XR75, soon to be followed by Honda's first two-stroke, the amazing CR250M Elsinore. The XR was a whole new type of off-road Honda, built for performance. It was light, compact, and ready to race right out of the crate. There were no lights to strip off, and no street bike foof that needed to be removed. It was serious, purposeful, and the catalyst for a mini off-road revolution. Within a year of the XR's launch, there were frames, exhausts, big bore kits, and all manner of aftermarket go-fast goodies available to turn your XR from mild to wild. Within a few years, the two-stroke minis caught and passed the venerable XR75, but its legacy continued on with the XR80R and later CRF80F. For 4 decades, it soldiered on as one of the most indestructible, enduring, and beloved bikes in Honda's lineup. Race bike, pit bike, or backyard plaything, the XR always remained true to its one defining mission, having fun. So there you have it. There's a look back at the 1973 Honda XR75, a very important machine for Honda, certainly, and off-road racing in general at the time. This bike was really groundbreaking. It preceded the Elsinore by a little bit. Obviously, the Elsinore gets the lion's share of the attention. It was meant for adults. This is meant as a kid's bike, but Lord knows many adults certainly rode XR75s around. Great pit bike. Great racer early on, and certainly one of the most fun machines Honda's ever produced. A bike very much like the PW50 that probably launched thousands of careers early on, certainly. Then many people getting involved in off-road racing, just riding it around their backyard and stuff. They're quiet, fun, stone reliable, just great machines to this very day. If you'd like to see me cover something else on the channel, please feel free to leave a comment below. I definitely read the comments. If you could share on social media as well, help grow the channel, I'd really appreciate that as well. So until we meet again, this is Tony Blazier for the Motocross Vault. Keep the rubber side down. Peace.